The Egyptian president returns home following an official visit to Tanzania. CENTCOM launches 8th airstrike wave in Iran, targeting military sites. And Jordan downs 3 Iranian missiles. The 4th lands harmlessly, no damage. And welcome to Qnews. It's 7 p.m. Cairo local time, and I'm Salma El-Fiki, and that was the news headlines. And now the news in detail. The Egyptian presidency has stated that President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi returned home following an official visit to Tanzania. And during the trip, the Egyptian leader held bilateral talks with the Tanzanian president and co-participated in the closing session of the Egyptian-Tanzanian Business Forum. And earlier, Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has underscored the Julius Nyerere Dam as a flagship model of successful African partnership, reaffirming Egypt's commitment to expanding development cooperation with Tanzania. And he highlighted unprecedented progress in bilateral ties, driven by strong political will and close coordination on regional and international issues. The Egyptian leader emphasized plans to boost trade, investment, and private sector engagement across key sectors, including infrastructure, transport, energy, agriculture, and healthcare. He also stressed Egypt's readiness to transfer expertise, support capacity building, advance food security initiatives, and develop ports and logistics corridors while deepening coordination on African priorities and Nile Basin cooperation. Egypt and Tanzania are accelerating strategic cooperation, driving investment and empowering the private sector to achieve shared African development and prosperity.
A strategic partnership rooted in history and shared ambitions, Egypt and Tanzania continue to strengthen ties, advancing cooperation, investment, and African integration toward a future of mutual growth and prosperity. A landmark visit by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to Tanzania has marked a new chapter in bilateral relations, with both nations accelerating cooperation across key development sectors. President el-Sisi held high-level talks with President Samia Suluhu Hassan and attended the closing session of the Joint Business Forum in Dar es Salaam. The forum brought together more than 150 business leaders, reflecting growing economic momentum between the two nations. The Egyptian leader praised the strong and expanding ties and emphasized that recent agreements must now move to real implementation. He highlighted signed memoranda of understanding and joint projects in agricultural, livestock, infrastructure, and logistics, stressing that Egypt is committed to turning plans into tangible results. President el-Sisi said that cooperation must deliver tangible development and shared prosperity. For her part, President Samia underscores Tanzania's appreciation of Egypt's role across Africa, describing bilateral cooperation as a model of African integration. She hailed the Julius Nyerere Dam as a symbol of successful partnership and reaffirmed her country's commitment to expanding collaboration across sectors. From port development and transport links to technology transfer and capacity building, both leaders aligned on accelerating joint projects and empowering the private sector as a key driver of growth. As the visit concluded, one message stood clear: Egypt's engagement in Africa remains steadfast, driven by partnership, solidarity, and an enduring commitment to advancing development across the continent.
Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu Hassan has stressed that Egypt and Tanzania agree on the importance of cooperation and dialogue among the Nile Basin states, ensuring water use does not trigger regional conflict. Speaking alongside the Egyptian President in Dar es Salaam, she welcomed a new agreement to develop transport infrastructure, linking ports and building railways, and establishing a logistics zone to boost Egyptian exports across the region. She added that talks covered expanding cooperation in trade, investment, energy, and education, with both sides agreeing to increase bilateral trade volumes. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and the Tanzanian President have witnessed the signing of several memoranda of understanding to enhance bilateral cooperation, and the two leaders reviewed the Guard of Honor as national anthems played and artillery salutes were fired. This marks el-Sisi's second visit to Tanzania and his first since President Samia Hassan took office in 2021. And for more analysis, we now move to Rana Al-Assas in our newsroom. Rana.
For further analysis, we're joined from Cairo by African affairs expert Rami Zohdi. A very warm welcome to Qnews, sir, and it's a pleasure to have you with us. President Fattah el-Sisi emphasized moving from agreements to actual project implementation. How are Egypt and Tanzania ensuring these plans turn into tangible results rather than just staying on paper?
These are very important points in the history of the continent, not just in Egypt and Tanzania. These meetings and political agreements turn into added value in the form of a very important project that turns all attempts to have partnership into actual productivity that adds value to Tanzania and Egypt, as well as places around Tanzania that suffer from a lack of electricity. So I believe that this is the project of the century for the Tanzanian people, which manifests in proper administration as well as willpower, which exists in this form of this project.
السؤال الثاني The dam is a massive milestone, sir. How has the success of this project elevated Egypt's credibility as a major infrastructure and engineering partner across Africa?
The dam represents a proof and a reaffirmation that the Egyptian state that always speaks about the interest of African nations and its trials to help these countries develop, this is proof that it is actually delivering on its promise through helping a brotherly country to move towards development. So the Egyptian state that always talks about the fact that it is not against any development project for any African people is giving its technical and human expertise through different companies that have years of experience and have been working on this project for years on end. And I believe that this is the start of other projects that reaffirm that Cairo is the capital for the interests of the African peoples, and that Egypt cares for African interests as much as it cares about the interests of Egyptians.
Sir, both leaders are heavily relying on the private sector to drive growth. What are the biggest regulatory or financial hurdles these businesses face And did this visit solve them?
Maybe the private sector and its presence in this project, as well as other projects, is reaffirming that partnership and agreements between political leadership and administration between both countries is working systematically and very well. The emergence of private sector is a proof of the success of these relations, political relations. But there's always, of course, a challenge or obstacles. Some of them are natural, like the terrain and geographic realities, etc. But there are also other aspects like conflicts, legislation, etc. But cooperation between countries and signing these agreements and exchanging points of view, we believe that it can help African countries to overcome these obstacles, for us to see at the end of the day two Egyptian companies that are going forth with this project, and maybe you're going to see more companies that get into this kinds of projects, as well as other companies that are medium scale or small scale, so long as the political leadership gave the space when it comes to administration and it comes to facilitation, and as well as supporting free movement across the continent when it comes to tourism, education, work, enterprise. All of this works in favor of private sector in the form of the diplomacy of the private sector, as well as partnership between African nations.
Sir, geopolitically, how does building a tight strategic and economic alliance with Tanzania strengthen Egypt's diplomatic leverage and stability with the Nile Basin?
This agreement and the execution of this project represents a very ideal model for the form of cooperation between Nile Basin nations as well as nations across the continent. Relations between the country go back to 1961, since the first president of Tanzania. And such partnership has always been the case. But what's different in these past few years is that we see that this cooperation and this understanding it comes out of shared interests between both countries. Egypt presents true common interests as well as justice between these nations. So Egypt achieves its interests in the way that it gives a space for its companies to work across the continent, and the people themselves take in these companies and help execute these projects in real life.
From Cairo, that was Rami Zohdi, African Affairs expert. Thank you very much for your in-depth analysis and for joining us on Qnews, sir. And now we go back to my dear colleague in the studio, Salma Al-Fei.
Thank you, Rana. And now we move on to the latest developments in Iran. U.S. President Donald Trump has expressed deep sorrow following the deaths of 2 American service members. And speaking to News Nation, Trump called the losses tragic, stating that the administration hates to see such events occur while personnel are serving the nation abroad. Trump spent the day at his Bedminster resort in New Jersey and has not yet delivered a formal nationwide televised address regarding the latest military casualties.
Was announced. The entire military.
U.S. President Donald Trump has called on the congressional Republicans to expand a pending legislative package. President Trump stated that integrating Tehran into the economic measures is exactly what the late Senator Lindsey Graham had intended. The multi-billion-dollar sanctions framework, which already has broad bipartisan support in the Senate, primarily seeks to penalize Russia's energy sector, its shadow fleet, and major international buyers.
Can't have a great country, and that's true.
U.S. Central Command has launched its 8th consecutive night of airstrikes inside Iran. CENTCOM stated the overnight missions are part of a continuous campaign to degrade Iranian naval capabilities and drone manufacturing infrastructure. Local reports carried by Iran's Tasnim news agency confirm U.S. forces struck a strategic military site near the southwestern city of Shadigan. Residents also reported hearing multiple powerful explosions across the southern port cities of Bandar Abbas and Qashm Island, though Iranian state media has not yet confirmed the full extent of the casualties or structural damage. The Iranian Health Ministry reports that a series of American military strikes this month has left dozens dead and hundreds more wounded. And according to official statement details released just moments ago, the attacks spanned from July the 1st to July the 19th. And officials confirm at least 51 people were killed in the operations. Another 517 individuals sustained various injuries. Washington has not yet released a formal response to these specific casualty figures. We will bring you updates as the story develops. The International Atomic Energy Agency said it is verifying reports of an overnight attack that targeted the under-construction Darkhoven nuclear power plant, according to the global nuclear watchdog. The site contained no radioactive materials during its most recent inspection, meaning there is no immediate radiological risk to the area. Tehran has officially blamed Washington for the strike, calling it a breach of international law, while the U.S. Central Command states operations continue to target capabilities in the region. And Iran's Revolutionary Guard reported that 2 commercial vessels have been involved in a serious incident while attempting to transit the strategic Strait of Hormuz. And according to an official statement carried by Tehran's Tasnim news agency, the targeted ships were attempting to navigate what Iranian officials described as an unsafe route. The military command claims 2 additional vessels aborted their transit along the same path after ignoring multiple direct warnings from maritime patrols. The Revolutionary Guard further accused the foreign ships of acting under direct American operational support, adding to escalating tensions over critical shipping lanes in the region. A senior Israeli official warns that Tel Aviv could directly enter the military conflict alongside the United States if Iranian forces continue their wave of aggression against regional states. In an interview with Yedot Aharonot, the official declared previous understandings nullified due to Tehran's ongoing strikes on neighboring countries. Defense sources confirm the military is fully prepared for any Iranian attempt to strike inside Israel, following high-level strategy updates between Defense Minister Israel Katz and military commanders. The officials stressed that any direct strike on Israeli territory will carry a heavy cost, warning that unlike previous rounds of confrontation, future operations will have no operational boundaries.
Congratulations.
Over the gun.
Palestinian state.
Palestinian Authority.
Palestinian state that's free.
Les bombardements à Gaza.
The Jordanian military has intercepted and shot down 3 Iranian missiles. And according to an official military source, a 4th Iranian missile evaded defenses but landed harmlessly in a remote desert area. Armed forces confirmed the incident resulted in no casualties or structural damage, and Royal Engineering Corps teams have already secured the crash sites to clear any dangerous debris. Amman maintains its airspace monitoring remains at the highest state of readiness, warning that the military will respond with full force to any breach of the kingdom's sovereignty. And Jordan has firmly rejected claims of an emergency shutdown in its southern region. The Jordanian government confirms both Aqaba International Airport and the seaport are operating completely as normal. Government spokesperson Mohammed El-Momani stated that the local security agencies have registered absolutely no credible or imminent threats over the past 24 hours. The statement directly contradicts an earlier security alert from the U.S. Embassy in Jordan, which claimed an evacuation was underway due to a specific and credible threat. While Washington continues to strongly advise its citizens to avoid the critical transport hubs, Jordanian authorities urge the public to rely solely on official state channels for safety directives. Egypt and the U.S. have held high-level talks to review regional developments and strengthen strategic coordination. As Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati met Massad Boulos, the senior advisor to the U.S. President on Arab and African affairs. Both sides reaffirmed the strategic partnership and commitment to expanding cooperation. Discussions focused on crises in Sudan and Libya, stressing ceasefire efforts and political solutions. Talks also covered the Horn of Africa and the Nile water security, with Egypt rejecting unilateral measures. The U.S. side praised Egypt's role in promoting regional stability. England clinches historic bronze after thrilling victory over France as the World Cup excitement builds towards the final showdown between Spain and Argentina in North America before global audiences. Rana Al-Assas has the latest from the World Cup. Rana.
Thank you, Salma. England's national football team has secured its first ever bronze medal after a dramatic third-place playoff victory over France. The Three Lions defeated their European rivals 6-4 in a high-scoring, thrilling encounter to close out their tournament campaign in North America. The historic win marks England's best World Cup finish on foreign soil since 1966, capping of the remarkable run across the co-hosting nations of the United States, Canada and Mexico. Fans in London and across the globe are celebrating the milestone as the tournament now heads into its highly anticipated final match. European champions Spain clash with defending global champions Argentina in the highly anticipated final of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. A capacity crowd exceeding 80,000 spectators is filling the MetLife Stadium for this historic cross-continental showdown. Both powerhouses have displayed exceptional tactical mastery throughout the tournament, with Spain relying on the defensive wall of the Uni Simon and Argentina driven by the tournament leading clinical form of Lionel Messi. The matchup also delivers a compelling generation battle as legendary veteran Messi shares the ultimatum on the international stage with Spain's 19-year-old Lamine Yamal. Now we go back to my dear colleague Salma Al-Fay in our studios.
Thank you, Rana. And that's the end of our news bulletin for this hour. But before we go, here's a quick recap of the top stories making headlines this hour. The Egyptian president returns home following an official visit to Tanzania. CENTCOM launches 8th airstrike wave in Iran targeting military sites. And Jordan downs 3 Iranian missiles. The 4th lands harmlessly, no damage. And that concludes this hour's Qnews Bulletin. And as the day's developments continue to unfold, our coverage continues as well. So do stay with Qnews.